Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It is Sunday, July 21st. So I thought today's supposed to be the Sunday sermon. But I've had a request from Brandon wanting to know with the mobile service of what's going on. And I also want to talk about another topic that I come to light, and I'm glad it did, is a lot of times I assume, okay? And when I'm showing you videos on repairing stuff, it may not be sensible or even affordable to like have a set of torches and a bottle of Maps gas, or like Jason had said with the the standard kind, will get you by in a pinch. But the key is getting it heated and then not heated, right? So that you're not heating the whole shaft itself. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. We'll try to cover both topics. Alrighty, welcome back. My name is Eric, and today is the Sunday sermon slash having some fun and bringing new ideas to light. So, the first one is, when I'm showing videos, a lot of times I assume that people have these things in their shop, right? And they may have if you're running a full-time business in this profession, right? If you're running a full-time business, whether it be car mechanic, small engineer mechanic, what have you, a set of torches is a must. I mean, it's not a need, it's a must. And I actually have two sets. I've got the large set that, we have on wheels in the shop so we can move it around, right? But I've also got a portable set, and it's in a tote, and the bottles are about that big around. And I'm trying to think, Harbor Freight's got them, Track Supply's got them, where you can buy the complete set with tanks, and you can take and have those tanks refilled. Now with me, I do a yearly contract with a supplier, and they own the tanks. I lease the tanks year by year. And as the tank runs out, I just take it back and they give me a new one, and I pay for the contents that's in that tank. And that's all I pay for, because I've already leased the tanks for the year. Now, with my smaller tanks, if I'm just taking them and having them be refilled, you don't have a lease involved. And that might be just the set to have, which is a lot less money. I guess, let me just rephrase that, because it's not a lot less money, because you're buying the tanks up front, all right? And what I found was we were always kicking ourselves because we couldn't get enough heat on something out in the field doing the service call. And that was my answer to the heat issue. Instead of loading the oxygen and acetylene, the big tanks, and putting them in the truck, strapping them in, it's grab the small tank, the small one. You carry it in one hand. Get the little tote, I think the tote comes with it with Track Supply. If not, you're going to want it. Or if you're just going to have it in the shop in a stationary position, you could just take and strap them to the wall, right? And then have your set of torches coming off. And the things that you want probably with that set of torches is a brazing tip and what they call a heating tip, which is a rosebud. It's got the bigger head on it. And that is where you're trying to really put some heat. But you're going to go through some oxygen acetylene too. Brazing, if you're going to get into it, you know, you can buy the brazing rod with the coating already on it, and when you're brazing, you're heating the material that you want to braze to, right? And then the braze is melting off, kind of like soldering, right? You just keep applying the heat and letting the key to any of that is don't sit there and keep the heat right on it. Take it away, bring it back. Same thing with welding, you know. When a job needs to be welded on, you could do as much, if not more, with a 110 wire feed. Now, if you're filling in gaps and stuff, okay, that's going to take quite a while. That's where the stick welder would come in handy. But most of them that I know of are 220. And I own 2 of the 220 stick wire feeds, 2 of the 110, no, 1 of the 110s, and then I have 1 of the just strictly, because one's AC DC and the other one is strictly AC, okay? They're expensive. Hobart is what I buy, and I buy for not just the name, like you guys that are doing it all the time with Snap-on tools. I do it because of the quality. And I still have the original Hobart stick-fed AC welder that I bought when I started this business. And it was a few years later, I had a chance to buy the 110 wire feed and the AC/DC. So I bought that as a set. And then I bought the little wagon you can put it on too to pull it around from job to job to job. So if we're looking at affordability and tacking this or welding this back, or, you know, a lot of times that 110 wire feed, which I think is under $200, will do what you need to do. It takes a little bit of a different knack because you got to have the wire close. But the best way to learn is just doing it, right? You're going to screw up in the beginning, you know. Your welds are going to look like some toddler had done it until you finally get the motion where you're just curling the weld so it looks like it's a round thing moving and moving. And you start with whatever's furthest away from you and work back to you. But that rod or that wire feed is continually moving because you're moving the weld as you're coming. So you're puddling it up. All right, so if I do assume, speak up. Pete, Jason, you both spoke up. I read both of your comments of where a do-it-yourselfer probably couldn't afford to have a set of torches. Well, there's an option. You can buy the small set. Or in that case, you can probably get by with maps. Or as Jason said, it's not the best answer, but if you don't have a set of torches, it is the answer. All right, so let's step to point 2, and that is Brandon. Brandon was asking, because he started a mobile repair business, and what he should stock on the truck or trailer, however you're doing it, Brandon. And I do have a little bit of experience in it because a friend of mine quite a few years ago had one just like what you're talking about. And he came to me and he said, would you be willing to work with me on parts? Yeah. What do you want me to do? What do you need from me? And he was saying that the biggest problem he has is needing parts for jobs when he gets there. If it's just a mobile service, you're talking plugs, air filters, oil filters, oil, antifreeze for the liquid cooled John Deere's. Kind of the basics, right? And then you got to have a disposal container for your used oil. And I'd also have on that some PRI-G treatment to help. I would treat every customer's unit, whether it needs it or not. Because you're going to run into, water in the gas and stuff like that. But now, his problem was he would get to a job for a mobile service and come to find out that one of the belts was ready to break, or the deck, had a crack in it or pulled a hanger out. It was stuff above and beyond just a service, right? And what I talked to him about doing, I said, what you need to do is you got to set appointments up for your customers, right? He goes, oh yeah, absolutely. Because if I don't have appointments, then right there, if you get set up for an appointment with that customer, you need to know what is the make and model number. If it's a John Deere 235, okay. Now, once you know that information and you know you're going to be headed that way tomorrow or the next day, it wouldn't hurt to take a set of blades, drive and deck, a set of blades, because if it's worn out and you can't touch it up because there's pieces missing, the blades are going to come in handy. So what we ended up doing was he would call me like 2 or 3 days ahead with his appointments on what machines he was going with. And 99% of the time, I had the belts, the blades. If it was a faulty key switch, good chances I had it. So what I would do is I'd have him stop, before he headed for that job or the night before, and I would lend him the belts, the blades, and other miscellaneous stuff that he might need on that call. See, the key is not having to take it back and sit and wait for parts and have to do 2 service calls when you're only getting paid for 1, right? Because the customer is going to say, well, I thought it was just a one-time fee, So what he did was, like I say, he'd call the night before or that morning, he'd stop in, and we sit down and decide, what do you need on the truck just in case? And I would help set him up so that when he went on that call, he had everything he needed. And he even went to the point of where he was using a 110 wire feed welder. He had that right on his trailer. He used a trailer, pull behind trailer. And I want to say it was like a 16-footer. And he had different stuff in there, air compressors. And the other thing is I was sending with, a tube for the front tire, a tube for the back tire, just in case. But when it came to actual tires, he'd have to order those. But he got so that he could carry pieces of our scrap metal, and if a deck needed to be welded quick, he could do it while he was there. Now, is that technically above and beyond what a normal service is? Absolutely. But the key to a mobile service is not having to go back over and over and over again, right? and waiting on parts, because that customer's thinking, if you're coming this morning to do a service, I should be mowing by noon. Yeah. And the other thing, Brandon, I would carry strictly synthetic, because a synthetic motor oil is not going to affect the older machines. Probably even better for them. And it's a requirement on the newer machines. So there's no sense in carrying two different blends. Figure out what you got and what you want to mark up that oil to, and stick with just one. Walmart's 10W30 synthetic is probably more than you'll ever need. That gives you an idea. You don't need a John Deere oil. The other thing is what we had in stock and we were sending with is transmission plugs. They're the rubber, because the ones they put into it are plastic. And if the transmission is low, the hydrostatic transmission, he had the oil on the truck to add. But once you pull that plastic plug, it's destroyed. You can't get it to seal again. And we used to carry the rubber plugs. And whether it was a John Deere or an MTD, these plugs would work. All right? Because the key is when you get there, Brandon, you got to have everything that you need, and you don't want to have to wait around for parts. If you're waiting around for parts, that means you're waiting around to get paid, and all of a sudden it starts falling behind. And now you're booked out, let's say, for the week, and your parts are coming in 3 days. You don't have an opening to go back in 3 days. You have other customers booked on Wednesday. So what do? You make sure that you have the stuff on hand. So you need to know the customer, what the machine is, what the model number is, and carry the basic stuff that day for that machine. And if you can't afford and don't have the place to do storing inventory and stuff, work it out with a bigger shop in the area that is doing retail and repairs. Now, some shops will tell you to blow it out your ass. I'll tell you right now, because you are competition and they haven't figured out that make your competition your friend. There's more than enough to go around. And one complements the other, right? I mean, it's one thing if they're stealing all your customers and you have a place of business, it's saying a lot about your place of business. Because if you're both basically charging the same hourly rate, it should be pretty much the same, except for actually the mobile should be more, because they're spending gas getting to and from. Same thing with us. When we do a pickup drop off, we charge for that. We used to do it free, and it just got the price of gas jumped and else, and it wasn't economical. So actually the repair shop should be cheaper than the mobile on the end result doing the same work. But if you can find that right business, and I'm not sure, your location, but if you can find even a retailer that isn't doing repairs, just selling parts, to work something out with them. Because with me, selling parts is selling parts. Am I going to give someone a discount that buys a lot of parts from me? Absolutely. Because that's what I'm being given from the distributors. I had to show them that I wasn't your $10,000 a year, dealer that you're dealing with. I'm your $300,000. And what are you going to do to get my business? And all of them went to warehouse level with me. So I was getting the same as a warehouse cost. So in doing so, I had plenty of fluff between what I was paying and what list price was to offer these guys that were buying more than just a hit or miss here or there, a discount, so that they have room to mark it up a little bit, because you should be marking up belts, blades, tubes, whether it's 10%, 15%, 20%, whatever you decide, there needs to be a markup, right? You got to make money on the parts and labor. If you're not making it on both, then hopefully your labor is so high that it's offsetting the cost of bringing in the parts. Now, the other option is if you have a storage building, and as you're building your business, you're able to afford, if you know that you got a number of John Deere's, let's say D100s, that you have a set of blades, set of belts for drive and deck, tubes, air filters, key switches, have it on the truck. And when you get back from that call, if you didn't need it, put it back on the wall and look at your next job, and then take what you need off the shelf for that job. So there's two different ways. You can inventory it yourself, and that's expensive in the beginning. Or you can hook up with a retailer that is selling just strictly parts. Or third, I guess, you could hook up with one that's doing retail and repairs. And if they get snuffy with you, tell them to watch my video. You get more, bees with honey than you do with salt, right? Alright, so I'm going to start wrapping this up for a Sunday. Hopefully that's helped you, Brandon and Pete and Jason, with the propane and MAPS gas. Great ad. Thanks for bringing it to my attention. And also, if there's certain things that you don't have in the shop and you're looking for a workaround, post it. There's not just me on this channel. It's not about me, it's about us. It's about sharing information and working together to get her done. And there's a lot of qualified people on this channel. You got Jason, Pete, Travis, Amos. I mean, the list goes on. Greg, that are doing this on a regular basis and can give you a workaround on something that you may be working on, but you can't afford certain tools that we have in our shops, right? And good chances are, it's been done a different way because of affordability. But I don't know unless you say something. And with you, Brandon, when you're doing your appointments with your customers, if you're doing more than just a full service, you gotta give leeway time for other repairs that it needs. Whether if you get a flat tire when you show up on the customer's mower, then you need a set of tire spoons to pop it apart, pop the bead off, change the tube, put it back, all that stuff. And it takes time. So if you've got, let's say, 2 booked for the morning, I'd be a little nervous, because if you get to the first one and all it is just simply an oil change service, you're talking an hour. So your next appointment, could be, 10 minutes away, and could spend the rest of the day there. So just keep that in mind. You have to watch the clock. And that's the other thing that I'll add too, Brandon, is when you're doing your appointments, get them as close together as possible. I'm not saying time-wise, I'm saying location. Because if you're spending your time driving all the way out here and doing a service, and then driving all the way back past your business and the other way and doing a service, then you're wasting a lot of time. Whereas if you this is going to come with time, okay? As you build your customer base, you're going to know where your customers are located, right? And you may pick, let's say, Monday to do out here. And you may have 2, 3, or 4 appointments to get done out here. But you're not spending a lot of time traveling. You're just jumping around in that area. And then Tuesday, you can go this direction. But you don't want to be Monday going here and then all the way over here. Because it costs you time, and time is money. So on that note, you guys have a great Sunday, and we'll be here bright and early tomorrow morning with a weekday. Thanks so much for watching.